do I teach people who started to let go and be themselves and to have fun? Because they come to me and I really struggle to get them to relax because they're just
I know it's
so serious and so tense.
It's the same all over. Well, one of the things that I'm going to suggest to you is something which you're going to have to think whether in fact you want to do it. I recommend that you do it. But it takes a little doing, and that is to stop using the word stutter.
Okay.
And instead start talking about the challenges of holding back, letting go, because that is what the real issue is. What happens is that when people look at stutter, they end up turning it into a thing. I call it thingifying it. They thingify it. They make it into a thing. And once it becomes a thing, like, oh, here it is, I have this thing, then it can become something to fear.
That's it. Yeah.
If you start using the words hold back, you can't do that with that.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
But holding back is something that you do.
Yeah.
And so I talk about the fact that you can't do something and hold back from doing it at the same time, because you get this do it, don't do it, do it, don't do it, do it, don't do it.
And can I ask you, John, where does it come from, this holding back, this desire to hold back? Where does it come from?
Good question. It can come from any number of places. For example, my mother, delightful lady, she was a kindergarten teacher in her early days before she married my father. Everybody loved Louise Harrison. But years later, when I visited her in Florida, we were driving along the street, and my mother was, I think, 92 at the time. She was very old. And she turns to me out of the blue, and she said, you know, when I was married to your father, I never had an orgasm. I mean, really. And after she said that, a little voice in my mind said, makes sense. My mother did not let go. She never did things that were outrageous.
Yeah.
She never, things had to be proper. Things had to look good. Things had to get other people's approval.
That's it. Yeah.
She never did things just because she friggin' felt like she wanted to do it.
That's it. Yeah.
She never did. And my father was a businessman, and he really didn't know how to relate to kids too much. So I couldn't get much from him. But I never felt like I could just be myself. And in my book, and also in one of the articles that I wrote, I talked about when I was in 7th grade. one weekend we had friends who I lived in New York, they were in New Jersey, which is the adjoining state. And we went to visit them. And they had a daughter by the name of Barbara Lee. It was Barbara Lee Brenner. Her name was the family. The family was the Brenners. And so my parents decided it would be a lot more fun if they hung out with Barbara Lee's parents. And I hung out with Barbara Lee and her friends, which is what I did the whole weekend. These people never knew me from before. And from the very moment that I met them, I was a different person. I was expressive. I was funny. I was loud. I was pushy. I mean, all things I would never do. I was assertive. I was adventurous. I did all these things. And for that entire day that I spent with them, I never had problems with stuttering, not once. And then at the end of the day or the next day, I forget when we went back, I went back to my home in Long Island, which is a suburb of New York. And I slipped back into the old role.
Yeah.
I was not that outspoken. I was not that loud. I was totally controlled. I was totally cognizant on a moment by moment basis of how I was impacting, everybody else. When I was with these other kids who I didn't know, I didn't do any of that stuff. I just did what I freaking wanted to do. I just blah, and it was an entirely different life experience. I never forgot that. And it was very hard for me then to go back and be this new version in my old familiar environment, because I had established my personality. I established my relationship. I established people's expectations of who I was. And I just didn't feel confident enough to show up differently.